Hello and a very warm welcome to yet another edition of World Panorama. Here we are getting you your weekly dose of major international news with a perspective. I am Sana Khan. Before we get you detailed reports, here's a look at the top stories this week. Prime Minister Manmohan Singh returns from his Thailand-Japan tour. World Panorama takes a closer look at how the visit could give a new meaning to India's Look East policy. President Assad confirms that Syria has received first shipment of Russia's long-range S-300 missiles, issues a direct threat to Israel. All eyes now on the peace conference later. Mired in recession, the European Union eases austerity focus for 6 of Europe's biggest economies in a bid to boost growth. And in Formula One, Mercedes driver Nico Rosberg emulates father KK in a dramatic race, wins Monaco Grand Prix 30 years on. Straight to the story in focus this week. Prime Minister Dr. Manmohan Singh's just concluded visit to Tokyo marks an inflection point in India's quest for a solid strategic partnership with Japan. Now, on the eve of Prime Minister's visit, New Delhi appeared afraid of annoying Beijing by drawing closer to Tokyo. Sino-Japanese tensions and Delhi's hopes for a political breakthrough with China suggested that India might miss a rare opportunity at hand in Japan. Now, the re-election of Shinzo Abe, who gave a big boost to ties with India during 2006 and 7 as the Prime Minister of Japan last December, was an entirely unexpected political blessing, it seems, but New Delhi seemed reluctant to embrace Abe. The Chinese military intrusion, remember, in eastern Ladakh last month exposed the enduring fragility of India's relations with China and underlined the new salience of the Japan option. Now, making amends this week in a bold overture, the Prime Minister described Japan as a natural and indispensable partner in the economic modernization of India and the construction of a stable Asian balance of power. Singh also backed Abe's Herculean effort to revive the Japanese economy and put Tokyo back at the heart of a resurgent Asia. On the bilateral front, Singh and Abe ordered their officials to quickly wrap up the stalled bilateral negotiations on the civil nuclear energy cooperation. Abe, in fact, acknowledged India as a responsible nuclear power and promised to support its full integration onto the global non-proliferation order. And on the crucial economic front, Japan has agreed to intensify its support for infrastructure development in India, including the development of a high-speed railway system. To dwell deeper into the subject, to talk more about the visit of the Prime Minister to Japan, I'm pleased to welcome Dr. Srabani Roy Chaudhary, Associate Professor of Japanese Studies from the School of International Studies, JNU. Thank you so much, ma'am, for joining me on the show.
Thank you.
Before I get her perspective on this issue, here's a report that I've compiled for you.
In what can be seen as an unambiguous signal to China, Prime Minister Manmohan Singh asserted India's strategic preference as he described Japan as a natural and indispensable partner and framed the Indo-Pacific as a new axis for cooperation in the region.
Our discussions were guided by the fundamental belief that at a time of global uncertainties, change and challenges, India and Japan are natural and indispensable partners for advancing prosperity in our two countries and for a peaceful, stable, cooperative and prosperous future for the Asia-Pacific and Indian Ocean region.
In his address, Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe commended his Indian counterpart for his immense contribution in strengthening ties between the two countries.
先ほどの首脳会談においては、7年前に新首相と私との間で構築に合意をいたしました。戦略的グローバルパートナーシップが年次首脳会談を通じて発展していることを改めて確認でき、嬉しく思います。新首相のこれまでの多大なご貢献に敬意と感謝を表したいと思います。
The Indian Prime Minister also expressed satisfaction on the first bilateral exercise between the Indian Navy and the Japan Maritime Self-Defense Force that was held in June 2012.
We attach particular importance to intensifying political dialogue and strategic consultations and progressively strengthening defense relations, including through naval exercises and collaboration in defense technology. Cooperation in high technology, space, energy security, and rare earth minerals will also add rich content to our strategic partnership.
In an important focus area of the visit, it was agreed that Japan and India will boost cooperation on nuclear energy. Also, Japan told India it was keen to sell its domestically designed and manufactured amphibian aircraft to India.
The Japanese government has offered to sell the US-2 amphibian aircraft to India. This has been reported already. This is one of the few occasions where Japan has offered to sell such dual-use equipment with both military and civilian applications to a foreign country.
Japan is also set to boost its maritime security ties with India as the Abe administration seeks to ally itself with Asian nations amid an ongoing territorial row with China in the East China Sea. The Prime Minister's visit to Tokyo was scheduled last year but was postponed after the announcement of sudden general elections in Japan. India and Japan, the leading democracies of the world, have had their individual military face-offs with China on their respective territorial issues.
All right, Dr. Roy Chaudhary, there's so much to talk about over here, but I'll start by asking you, what are the key takeaways that you see from this visit of the Prime Minister to Japan?
I think the major takeaway this time has been that the strategic issues have become the forefront. Out of the 34 paragraphs, there is a dedication of only 11 paragraphs to economic matters. And the first 8 paragraphs are strategically talking not only about the bilateral issues that are going to be the areas of cooperation between India and Japan with respect to maritime, with respect to more defense, as well as other areas of strategic importance. But the last few paragraphs again goes back to talk about the East Asian community and the cooperation that Japan-India wishes to perform with respect to the UN reforms, Afghanistan and North Korea. So it's a document which prefers very clearly that it is going to be strategic as well as economic partnership.
Okay. So basically, the fact is that India's Look East policy, that might not be a huge step, but also it points out to the fact that Japan is increasingly occupying a very significant strategic position in the scheme of things.
Yes, in fact, I think for the first time we can definitely tell ourselves that the Look East policy that was promoted by the Narasimha Rao's government has finally taken a strong step forward. And with this kind of collaboration and strategic partnership that augurs from this statement, we expect that the Look East policy will soon be, proliferating into all other Asian economies around us.
All right, shifting focus to a little bit of economics over here. Out of this visit came an investment from Japan of around $44.6 billion US. Now that's huge. Explain to us what's the bigger picture as far as this economic partnership goes.
In the economic partnership, one is of course that we are going to get a 70 billion plus US dollars for the Mumbai metro, and that is going to be much bigger plan than what the Delhi metro has seen. Apart from that, 8 strategic projects will also be going to get 3.6 billion US dollars. Followed by what is interesting is the educational yen loan that we are going to get for the IIT campus in Hyderabad, and also the Tamil Nadu investment program, which essentially, if you look at the bigger picture, it essentially shows that both north of India, the west of India and the south of India would have a huge infrastructure commitment by Japan, which essentially means we expect a huge growth in the Indian economy by this infrastructure development programs.
And perhaps some of the bullet train technology as well that has been talked about.
Often see, you'll probably see in the next decade the Shinkansen traveling between Delhi and Mumbai.
Absolutely, a lot more quicker. Now, the role of China, cannot help but talk about that as well, because both the nations, India and Japan, are locked in territorial standoff with China, and a lot of criticism really in the Chinese media about the way this visit has taken place. In fact, they've called, petty burglar, and it is said that, strategic cooperation of India and Japan can only bring trouble to India. So, not really seen in a very good light, and obviously so. How do you see this?
Frankly speaking, as an expert in Japan, I would like to say that India-Japan relationships transcends China component. However, China does figure into the whole picture today simply because China has angered both Japan and India by its territorial incursions. And given this background and with the South China Sea issue in which China is trying to make its dominance felt, Japan is keen in many realistically to contain China, and India forms a huge partner. Remember, Abe has also come up with the diamond, the strategic security diamond, in which he basically talks about a strategic alliance between Japan, India, Australia and USA. If this thing, which he previously also promoted, which as a trilateral thing in which India, Japan and Australia were supposed to be participants, China had made a hue and cry, and there were quarters across India, Japan, USA who did not approve of it, and it was put into the back burner. But this time round, I think Abe is more committed to this diamond, strategic diamond, and I do expect this particular visit of Prime Minister proves to us that he is probably going to take it forward.
All right. Also, having said that, do you think China's possible annoyance as India is cozying up to Japan has had any sort of an impact on the dialogue that went on between India and Japan? Do you think that affected that in any way?
I personally do not think that it affected the dialogue between both the countries. In fact, I think both the countries' premiers kept China away from any kind of statements that was made, which was, I think, being very matured and very politically correct. However, my contention continues that China will be will loom somewhere behind in a bilateral relationship between India and Japan. What would be interesting to see is how how Abe takes forward this strategic partnership, keeping in mind the bigger picture of the diamond that he wants to create.
Right. All right. I also wanted to ask you, a lot of Japanese investment we've talked about, the strategic cooperation between India and Japan. What's in it really for India? How do you see India having taken away something from this visit for its own, be it economic development or defense? How do you see that?
With respect to this particular visit in India, I think India proves itself again that it can nurture and build friendships. What has started with a very tentative strategic partnership, today we know it is now gone into the level 2, and we expect it to get entrenched into our foreign policy making. With respect to what is real takeaway, economically, I think it's a huge takeaway, $44.6 billion US dollars coming into our country at a crucial time when we want to again revive our economy. If it's done with commitment and with time credibilities, we should be able to prove that economically we move forward.
What about the nuclear agreement that, we're hoping that it would move forward, but then nothing really happened on that front?
Yeah, I think as most people, if you look at the media as well as experts' comments, pre-visit of our Prime Minister, we definitely thought that in the nuclear cooperation we would move forward. Incidentally, we again stopped at that, accelerating the program. There is in the international community a feeling that Japan is going to push for India in the organizations like nuclear supplies organizations and other such missiles and Australian group.
Right.
In these kind of places, if India does find a place, I think it will become easier for Japan, given its constraints and the fact that we do not and we will not ever sign the CTBT. It will give Japan a much easier route to start the nuclear cooperation.
So nonetheless, one thing that has come out of the visit is a crucial positioning of Japan in the scheme of things as far as India's policy, Look-East policy is concerned. And a lot of positives there for India as well, economically and strategically. We have been talking about that. Dr. Roy Chaudhary, thanks so much for joining me this week on the show and sharing your perspective with us.
Thank you.
Syrian president displays a new level of defiance, warns Israel that he could permit attacks on the Golan Heights, suggesting that he had secured plenty of weapons from Russia. More details coming up in just a minute. Welcome back. The Syrian president has told Lebanon's Hezbollah-owned television station that Damascus received the first shipment of Russian air defense missiles, according to remarks released on Thursday. Now, Assad's comments on the arrival of the long-range S-300 air defense missiles in Syria are set to further ratchet up tensions in the region and undermine efforts to hold UN-sponsored talks with Syria's warring sides. Here's a report.
In a move that could complicate any foreign intervention in his war-torn country, Syrian President Bashar al-Assad was quoted saying that Syria has received the first shipment of an advanced Russian air defense system.
نحن لا نعلن عن الموضوع العسكري عادة ما الذي يأتينا أو ما هو الموجود لدينا، ولكن بالنسبة لروسيا العقود غير مرتبطة بالأزمة. نحن نتفاوض معهم على أنواع مختلفة من الأسلحة منذ سنوات، وروسيا ملتزمة مع سوريا بتنفيذ هذه العقود. فما أريد أن أقوله لا زيارة نتنياهو ولا الأزمة نفسها وظروفها أثرت على توريد السلاح، فكل ما اتفقنا به مع روسيا سيتم وتم جزء منه طبعا خلال الفترة الماضية، ونحن والروس مستمرين بتنفيذ هذه العقود.
Moscow, the Assad regime's most powerful ally, announced this week it intends to honor its contract to supply Syria with the S-300 missiles, a move that the US strongly condemned.
We disagree with and we condemn the continued supply of Russian weapons to the regime. And this includes all classes of weapons, and we've been clear throughout and very direct with the Russian government about that.
The S-300 is a highly capable surface-to-air missile system that, as well as targeting aircraft, also has the capacity to engage ballistic missiles. The delivery of such missiles raises fear of further tension with Israel, as Assad has threatened to respond directly if Israel launches any further air attacks on Syria. UN Chief Ban Ki-moon said he was against global powers supplying Syria with weapons and pressed both sides in the civil war to find a political solution to prevent threats to regional stability.
My position on this issue has been clear and consistent. I have been urging all the parties who would have influence to both sides, they should urge both sides to stop fighting. And there is no shortage of arms in both sides. Just providing arms to either side will not help this process. There is no such military solution in this case. I think only a political process can resolve this issue sustainable way.
The United States and Russia are trying to convene an international conference this month to end a 26-month-old conflict that has killed more than 80,000 people and threatens to ignite wider Middle Eastern confrontations. But the opposing sides remain far apart on whether Assad should play any role in any political transition, and the main Western-backed opposition has not even said if it will attend.
Well, the European Union is giving struggling member countries a break to meet their binding deficit targets, extending deadlines while still demanding reforms, in the clearest sign yet that the crisis management is shifting from austerity to growth-driven policies. The move has been gradual and expected, but the final report card released Wednesday by the European Commission gave countries like Spain even more breathing room than expected. France, Italy, Portugal, Poland, Slovenia, and even better off countries like the Netherlands and Belgium also got some reprieve.
After 3 years of painful belt tightening, the European Commission has made a striking U-turn on its policy of blunt and universal austerity. The change of emphasis comes as the Eurozone struggles to escape a second consecutive year of recession and record high unemployment brought on by the collapse of investor confidence following 3 years of debt and currency crisis.
We recommend for Belgium, the Netherlands and Portugal an extension by 1 year, and for France, Poland, Slovenia and Spain an extension by 2 years.
The Commissioner added France in particular needed to fix some key economic issues, including inefficiencies in labour markets and public services.
In return, it is crucial, indeed essential, that France use this additional time to tackle its underlying problems of economic competitiveness. As outlined in the country-specific recommendation, France should further reduce the cost of labour, especially through reducing social security contributions.
Deficit-laden countries, especially heavyweights France, Italy and Spain, have long pressed northern Europeans, especially Germany, to ease off their demands for cuts. The EU faces a second straight year of recession and rising unemployment, which in countries like Spain continues to rise toward an unsustainable 30%.
Periphery countries to grow. Now, Germany will, let's say, relax its own efforts for competitiveness. On the contrary, we need a strong German economy at the center of Europe. And also in Germany, they should avoid any form of complacency.
The EU's shift also comes after years of intense global pressure to mirror stimulus-driven policies in the US, Japan and elsewhere, which are credited with helping turn those economies toward growth. At the same time, it suggests that EU policymakers are more confident that the deficit crisis is under control. And it illustrates growing resentment against austerity in Europe, which is blamed for the soaring unemployment and poverty in periphery countries that threatens to undermine future economic growth, despite governments' efforts to bring spending under control.
Time now to take a look at some of the other international news in a quick wrap. Here's Globe Watch.
Iranian Oil Minister Rostam Qasemi met Indian Foreign Minister Salman Khurshid in New Delhi to revive oil sales to India. Sanction-hit Iran is digging out ways to revive its reducing oil export. The European and US sanctions, which have continued to hit the Iranian flow of oil money, is a mounting concern for the country. India, on the other hand, has asked Iran to join in for tenders seeking oil supplies for its strategic storage, which it is planning to build in the first quarter of 2014. US and South Korean soldiers held a joint river crossing drill on Thursday aimed at enhancing military capabilities. More than 300 US soldiers and 95 South Korean soldiers participated in the exercise, constructing temporary floats for tanks and armored vehicles to cross the Imjin River. A South Korean military official said 14 tanks and 16 armored vehicles from both South Korea and the US were mobilized for the training. China's economy is expected to expand at around 7.75% in 2013, according to IMF, lower than its April forecast of 8%. China's 2012 economic growth of 7.8% was its slowest in 13 years and came amid domestic weakness and major headwinds from overseas markets. The IMF said that China is facing key challenges, especially the rapid growth in total social financing, which is raising concerns about the quality of investment and its impact on the repayment capacity. China has offered Sri Lanka about $2.2 billion in loans for infrastructure projects and a free trade pact. Sri Lankan Foreign Minister G.L. Paris said agreements had been reached in all areas. Paris added that the agreements with China, including a separate one to enhance defense ties, should not be a cause for concern. Paris was speaking to journalists during an official visit to China by Sri Lankan President Mahinda Rajapakse. Baghdad once again experienced a wave of shock when a major blast killed at least 27 people on Wednesday evening. A car bomb along with several roadside bombs exploded in the Iraqi capital. Before this, 5 people were killed on Tuesday and 34 others injured due to the ongoing Sunni-Shiite discord. These attacks have been increasing past several weeks and more than 11,000 people have been killed since April.
All right, and now a look at all the sports news that you might have missed this week. A quick look at that in Sports Action.
Former Olympic pole vault champion Sergei Bubka has become the 6th candidate to put his name forward to become president of the International Olympic Committee. At a sports conference in St. Petersburg, the 49-year-old said his sporting past has given him the qualities to succeed in the job. Bubka is currently serving as the president of Ukraine's National Olympic Committee and is an IOC member. The Peking to Paris Vintage Car Challenge kicked off at the Great Wall of China on May 28th, with 96 cars participating in the race. The vintage cars will drive through 2 continents, lasting a total of 33 days in a journey spanning over 12,000 kilometers. The race's official website said the first challenge was held in 1907 and the route is said to be the longest and toughest race for classic and vintage cars. Former Inter Milan, Liverpool and Chelsea manager Rafael Benitez will return to Italy to take charge of Serie A club Napoli. The Spaniard replaces Walter Mazzarri, who quit after the team finished 2nd behind Juventus in Serie A this season to qualify for the Champions League. Germany's Nico Rosberg won Formula One's Showcase Monaco Grand Prix for Mercedes 30 years after his world champion father, Keke, triumphed on the streets of Mediterranean Principality. The pole-to-flag victory after 2 safety car deployments and a 25-minute stoppage caused by Pastor Maldonado crashing his Williams was only the second of Rosberg's career. Rosberg led from the start with Hamilton second and keeping Vettel and Webber back in third and fourth place.
Time now for all the very latest news from the world of movies and lifestyle. Here's our entertainment wrap.
The tender lesbian romance Blue is the warmest color. The Life of Adele won the hearts of the 66th Cannes Film Festival, taking its top honor, the Palme d'Or. The jury, headed by Steven Spielberg, took the unusual move of awarding the Palme not just to Tunisian director Abdel Latif Kashiche, but also to the film's 2 stars, Adele and Leah. The 3 clutched each other as they accepted the award, one of cinema's greatest honors. American actor Will Smith and his son Jaden promoted their new film After Earth in St. Petersburg, Russia. The father and son duo posed for pictures on a city rooftop overlooking St. Isaac's Cathedral before giving a news conference to local journalists. Their film, an action sci-fi, is directed by M. Night Shyamalan and tells the story of a father-son who crash land on Earth and have to fight to survive. After Earth is set to release in June of this year. Oscar-winning director Ben Affleck donned a traditional cap and gown as he was handed an honorary doctorate from one of America's most prestigious universities. The Argo director beamed with pride as he was awarded a fine arts degree from Rhode Island's Brown University in recognition of his acting and filmmaking career. Thousands of music fans braved the miserable weather for the chance to see big names such as Cypress Hill, The Offspring and Fatboy Slim perform at the 2-day concert, which also featured Beyoncé the previous night.
That's all we have for you in this edition of World Panorama. See you next week, same time, with more international news. Till then, you can follow us on Facebook and Twitter. As I sign off, take a look at this year's just concluded Cannes Film Festival. All the glitz and glamour and big films that won top honors. Goodbye and thanks for tuning in.
May I now declare the 66th Annual Cannes Film Festival open.